I'm gonna print this anyways. I'm gonna read it.
All right, everyone, we're just going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn today. It's going to be Housing Navigation with Rhiana Lewis, who is the CES specialist over here at Partners in Care. So I'll let her go ahead and take it away and get started.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn with CES. I am so excited to walk us through a PowerPoint that I've created for just today. Just to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Rhiana, as mentioned. I've been with Partners in Care for 1 year as of yesterday. Woo! Prior to that, I did work in as a case manager and housing navigator with IHS. And prior to that, I was a program coordinator and trainer in California with Hope of the Valley. So training is something I'm very passionate about. One of the big reasons also why we wanted to talk about this too is just to, go over a brief explanation of CES and how to access it, but also to let you all know that our team is available to support, and we love to just partner with all of you and support with whatever we can. So we just want to let you know that we're accessible to you. We also do have the rest of the CES team that has joined us today, so they'll be in the chat answering any questions that you have, and just here to support as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me one moment. All right, just waiting for that PowerPoint to come on.
I can see it, Rhiana.
You can. It's still working on my side, it says, apparently. Just one moment while it... There we go. Okay, it's loaded for me. Okay. All right. So, CES Lunch and Learn. Let's just briefly talk about the agenda today. What resources are available through the coordinated entry system? How can a person be referred? What are some resources outside of CES? And how can Partners in Care support your team? So these are the topics that we'll be going over today. Of course, you can always ask any questions that you have in the chat, or even just send us an email after if you need some further support on that. So what we're going to start with today is what resources are available specifically through CES, the coordinated entry system. The first resource is rapid rehousing. Now, this type of resource is a temporary subsidy that can, it's a temporary subsidy that can last anywhere from, it could be just a deposit for a client, or it could be a housing subsidy that can support for up to 2 years. Now, the way that rapid rehousing works, it's a tier down system. So the client will pay a portion of the rent, the subsidy will pay the other portion of the rent. And as time goes, and as they're assessing the client, et cetera, and seeing how much support that they need, the amount that the subsidy pays will go down and the amount the client pays will go up, to where at the end of this subsidy, the client should be paying the rent all on their own, or they will be paying the rent on their own. So this type of subsidy is really for clients who can maintain housing on their own after the subsidy ends. So if you have a client that's been referred to rapid rehousing and you're like, if we're considering what rent is like here on the island, I mean, usually we're talking about $1,300 plus. $1,300 is kind of a low one. So if they can be able to afford something like that on their own, then yes, I would consider that for the client. If not, then maybe you should consider another resource for them. The next type of resource is permanent supportive housing. Now, permanent supportive housing, this is meant to be a long-term subsidy. So we would hope that this could last essentially the rest of the client's life to help support them. But in reality, what it does look like is, as long as whoever provided that permanent supportive housing subsidy has funding left, that is how long the subsidy will last. But we do view it as a long-term subsidy. What does that look like? The client will pay 30% of whatever their income is, and the subsidy will pay the rest. So even if a client is on general assistance, they could still potentially be referred to permanent supportive housing. Even if they don't have income, they could still potentially be referred to it. That is something that we won't super dive into now, but if you have questions on that, feel free to drop them in the chat. This subsidy is also for clients who are chronically homeless and will not be able to maintain rent on their own. So if you have a client that is looking like they're not going to ever be able to generate more income, or maybe they're physically or mentally incapacitated and not going to be able to pay their rent on their own, then this is the type of subsidy that the direction that you would want to move for your client. The next type of subsidy is transitional housing. Transitional housing is a temporary subsidy that's site-based, and the time is allotted. Time allotted at the locations will vary. So essentially, it's a lot like rapid rehousing in the sense that this is a temporary subsidy, and at the end of this transitional housing stay, they will be expected to be able to maintain housing on their own with their own income, etc. What this looks like is a client will pay 30% of the income and the rest will be paid by the subsidy. And this is essentially for clients who can maintain housing on their own after the subsidy ends. I do see a question. Sylvia, did you want to ask?
Aloha, thank you. My question is about the rent amount. Is there ever a time in transitional housing where we could set the rent ourselves as like a flat fee?
I would say when it comes, oh, go ahead, Julia.
Sorry. I was just going to say it kind of depends on the program. Most of the state-funded transitional programs, to our knowledge, operate off of this 30% of income. But I know for some of like the RISE programs, your setup might be a little different where it's that flat rate. So it really depends on the particular project, but this is generally how the programs operate.
And I would say still, because the client's paying 30% of their income, whatever that may be, if that doesn't fluctuate, essentially it will look like a flat rate to them. Okay. So as mentioned before, this is for clients who can maintain housing on their own after that subsidy ends. So for however long they're in transitional housing, one of the good things about transitional housing, it does generally come with a case manager and other people on site that will support, the client potentially reaching goals, maybe getting a job or a better job, trying to increase their income. It's really trying to stabilize a person essentially that's maybe pretty much ready for housing, but just needs like a kind of practice or just some time to spend back into society. But that will end their chronic homelessness too. So when considering sending somebody transitional housing, it's with the understanding that after that transitional housing, they're not going to be able to get permanent supportive housing, or generally they probably won't be able to be prioritized for it, and they will need to be able to maintain that housing on their own after that time. So that is something to consider if your client has been referred to transitional housing. The next, just a little section here, it's about bridge housing. I know when I first started case management, I was like, oh, bridge housing, I'm gonna send everybody there. But then I kind of really didn't have an understanding of what it was. Now, bridge housing is only if a client is matched to a PSH resource already. So that means they have to have that subsidy in line, and then they have to be in a place where they basically need a safe place to stay while they're waiting for a placement. That is when you can request for a person to be sent to bridge housing. A question from Kinohi.
Question. Hi. So transitional housing.
Yes.
Transitional housing normally has a 2-year max, right? So you're describing it as like a rapid rehousing voucher, but yeah, I'm just a little bit kind of thrown off as to how you're explaining it, because transitional housing is not permanent.
Correct. Thank you. I'm sorry if I explained that in a confusing manner. My apologies. The reason why I compared it to rapid rehousing was just in the sense that it's a temporary subsidy. That is pretty much the only thing that it's really similar to, is just keeping in mind that it's something that's not permanent. So my apologies if I was not clear on that. Does that clear that up? Kinohi?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I think
Awesome. I'm glad
also,
to hear.
Rhianna.
Sure.
Hey,
Yes.
this is Laura. I was just gonna say,
But even for rapid rehousing, that is considered permanent housing, but the subsidy is not is not permanent. So the idea with rapid rehousing is that hopefully that person will remain in that housing forever or remain housed forever, but not with a subsidy forever.
Right. Okay, thank you. That is a great point, Laura. Yes. So the idea is hopefully that rapid rehousing will lead to them staying in that permanent housing. So the subsidy is temporary, but hoping that the housing is permanent. That's a great point. Okay. So just to finish up, like mentioned, so if you have a client that wants to go to bridge housing, they must already have that PSH voucher. I'm seeing another question from Anna.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on the bridge housing, but you are, so I couldn't get my hand down fast enough.
No worries. Sometimes I accidentally just have my hand up too when I meant to send like a clapping emoji. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
yes, no worries at all. Thank you for asking your question. So yes, a client can only use bridge housing if they're already matched to that resource and they need a safe place to stay while waiting for that placement. So that is the only way that works. Continuing on. So just to give you a little brief overview, this is a prioritization review. Now, this is just for the singles households. So we have many different subpopulations, whether that be veterans, youth, families, domestic violence. I think that's all of them. So they'll all have different prioritizations, but just to give you an idea of when you're determining what a client can be prioritized for, this is what it looks like. So for PSH, the very top priority of persons that have a VI-SPDAT range from 11 to 17. They're experiencing chronic homelessness, and they have 3 or more HUD disabling conditions. So that's who would be prioritized first for PSH, singles specifically. For rapid rehousing, again, who would be prioritized first would be people with a VI-SPDAT range from 4 to 10 and also chronically homeless. And for transitional housing, that would be people in the range from 11 to 17 on the VI-SPDAT score, along with chronic homelessness. Now, we do have a sheet that actually breaks down the prioritization for all the subpopulations that we will be dropping in the chat. So if you want to have a deeper dive, I know, again, when I was in the field doing case management, I was working with youth, I was working with individuals, I was working with couples, and the prioritizations do vary. So it's a great idea to just spend some time looking at that document and kind of getting an idea of what your client could be prioritized for so that you can prepare documents, things along those lines. Okay, I'm going to move along from what resources are available through CES unless there's any other questions at the time. Again, feel free to raise your hand if you do have questions, or you can just drop the questions in the chat and our team will be happy to answer those for you. All right, so how can a person be referred through the coordinated entry system and access CES resources? I know, again, we got a question from Rachel. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, sorry, back to the bridge
No
housing.
worries.
I just
Sure.
wanted to clarify, so they have to have gotten referred to PSH to go into bridge housing, or just the prioritization?
They have to be referred and enrolled. So HUD's
Okay.
guideline is that the PSH program needs to find them eligible and enroll them before they can go into bridge housing.
Okay,
they're
thank you. And
pretty
what are some
strict.
examples of bridge housing?
So the way that bridge housing is used right now, they're typically going to HCAP, and HCAP has kind of allowed us to utilize some units as bridge there.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wasn't familiar with that
Yeah.
process. Thank you for explaining.
No worries. No worries at all. And like I mentioned before, I talked about bridge housing. That's one of the reasons why I added that there, because that was such a confusing point for me too. And I just want to encourage all of you, feel free to ask questions. There's no need to say sorry or be embarrassed about it. I know that this field, so many things change all the time, and we're all in it together. I know we're all on different teams, but honestly, we're all out here doing the same thing, just trying to help our communities. So don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no stupid questions. you know,
15
that's one of
minutes
the
later, I'm
reasons why
ready
we're
for
doing
lunch.
this. You know?
Oh.
Oh, somebody's unmuted. We can hear you. All right, continuing on. How can a person be referred through the coordinated entry system? Sorry, why can't I move this? Okay, so let's talk about how prioritization works. And I know probably many of you on this call already know plenty of this, or maybe you just need a refresher, or some people don't. So I'm just wanting to share this very specifically. So a VI-SPDAT is completed. We'll take that score, or the system will, the disabling conditions that a client might have, and then their chronic homeless status, how long they've been experiencing homelessness. All three of these different items will create what's called a number next list prioritization. So that is not something that we do ourselves. That is all input and done through the HMIS system. Now, what is the number next list? The number next list adds a person to a list in order of that prioritization or vulnerability. So essentially, any single person that has had that VI-SPDAT, they've been enrolled in coordinated entry, they have been put onto the queue, their name is going to go onto this list. And there's different subpopulations as mentioned before. So there's different lists for the number next list. But anyways, the participant will be added to that list. When a housing subsidy resource becomes available, the CES team reviews who is next in line for prioritization and sends the referral. So say somebody like IHS puts, you know, a PSH referral inside HMIS, our team is notified. We go to that list and we just look and see who's prioritized next, and that's the person who's going to be sent to that resource. And each subpopulation, as mentioned, has its own list. So there's ones for veterans, there's individuals, there's youth. So they're all prioritized for the different resources that are available for each subpopulation. To note about the number next list, to access the number next list yourself, a person must have agency analysis role. And if you want to know more about this and you want to access that role, you can go ahead and ask in the chat and we can support with that. If you would like to see where your client is on the list, you can attend number next list meetings or email our CES team. So I just want to note, we're going to be dropping a document that has all of our different varying meetings, including the number next list meetings. It's very important for you to know where your client is on that number next list. And one of the reasons being, as soon as those resources do come available and we're going in to look to see who's next for the referral, we need to make sure that documents are there. So the chronic homeless verification packet needs to be completed for anybody that wants PSH. So if you don't have that completed, and say your client comes up, that's something that may stop them from getting that referral. But also, you just want to make sure that you have your client completely ready for that resource. And knowing where they are in the number next list is how you're going to know. So like I said, you can join those meetings with us, or you can also just shoot us an email anytime, or you can add to case conferencing, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, do we have any questions on the number next list at all? Okay. We'll keep trucking on then. The next thing we're going to talk about is completing the VI-SPDAT. Now, I wanted to know, I did hear from another provider like, oh, we're using the new map. At this moment, we are still using VI-SPDAT. We are still working on completing the map and rolling that out. And before that happens, there will be plenty of warning, there will be plenty of training and all kinds of things along those lines as we are gravitating away from it. But at this moment, we still want to talk about the VI-SPDAT and making sure that they're all done correctly, because they need to be, for people to be prioritized and for everything to be captured correctly. So when it comes to dues, you do want to update the VI-SPDAT every year or complete a new VI-SPDAT every year. So if it's been a year and it's not completed, then it will automatically be removed and your person will no longer be on that number next list, which means they will no longer be in line for those resources. So you always want to make sure that who's ever on your caseload, go through and make sure they have up-to-date VI-SPDAT. You want to create a new VI-SPDAT, even just if one thing has changed. The idea with the VI-SPDAT is wanting to make sure that we're capturing every single vulnerability of the client. So if, say they went to the hospital, that is a reason for you to do a new VI-SPDAT because that will change their prioritization. Or any small thing that has changed would mean that you could do a new VI-SPDAT. And just also to note, when you are administering the VI-SPDAT, it is okay to reword questions if the client does not understand. Yes, we are called to go through this VI-SPDAT and read the questions exactly as asked. That's it. But also, if the client's not understanding, it's okay for you to reword it a bit. Obviously, you don't want to coach them into saying something specific, but you just want to make sure that they're clear as to what the question really is, you know? Going into the don'ts. So don't update an old VI-SPDAT, always create a new one if things have changed. So especially if we're considering sometimes somebody else did the VI-SPDAT, and if you're going in there and updating it under there, your name is not going to be connected to it. But also we just, want to make sure that everything is correct. Next would be don't assume nothing has changed. I know, again, caseloads can be really heavy, and sometimes it's hard to stay on top of your caseloads and it's hard to stay on top of your clients. I get it. But checking in every few months and just I feel like personally I'm very familiar with the VI-SPDAT, and when I was in the field I was as well. So if something, even when I just talked to them, was changing, I'll be like, oh, okay, wait, that needs to reflect on the VI-SPDAT, or even asking them questions that are there, following up every few months to make sure that nothing has changed, or changing, or doing a new VI-SPDAT if something has. And don't miss out on capturing clients' needs, which is going to take us into the next section, which is the enrollment of coordinated entry versus the VI-SPDAT. But before I move into that, is there any questions about VI-SPDAT's do's and don'ts? Okay. So I'm going to bring this one case to our attention. Sorry. This is what an enrollment looks like in the coordinated entry, or a coordinated entry enrollment. So you can see this top section here, the prior living situation, where did you sleep last night? This section is what's going to generate the chronic homeless. So this is going to, whatever you enter here is going to generate if the client's experiencing chronic homelessness or not. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this next section, because the next page that I'm going to show you is going to be directly related to it. So I'm seeing in this person's enrollment, they have disabling conditions, a physical disability that's long-term, developmental disabilities, chronic health that's long-term, mental health that's long-term, substance use disorder that's long-term, and a survivor of domestic violence. So these are all the things that was reported in the enrollment. Now, what I'm going to bring up next is a section D of the VI-SPDAT. And what I would like for all of us to do here, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to throw it in the chat, let me know anything that you're seeing on this VI-SPDAT that might not match this enrollment. Hopefully that makes sense. So what is not marked in the wellness section of the VI-SPDAT that's listed in the enrollment? Does anyone see anything here? Hopefully it's big enough for you to see. Anyone? All right, shelter wisdom, Carolina. What do you see? Sorry, if you're talking, you're muted. In the chat.
Yes, so Monica noted in the chat, mental health issue.
Okay. Yes, a mental health issue or concern. We're seeing over here on this side that the client expressed that they have a mental health disorder and that it was long-term, but they didn't check yes here. Now, this section is directly asking, has your family ever had to leave an apartment shelter because of your physical health or mental health? That these other questions are related to that. So this participant could possibly be thinking, oh, well, I haven't necessarily had to leave a house just directly because of my mental health. But in this, we're thinking, what else could be the collateral damages that are happening from that mental health? Did the mental illness maybe make them lose a job? And then they didn't have any income. And so now they couldn't pay their rent. It wasn't directly the mental illness that led them to losing their housing, but it is associated with it. Does anyone else see anything else in the chat, or anyone want to raise your hand and mention anything else that you're seeing here? Okay. I'm going to go back to the other page. I know I'm going back and forth, but something else we're seeing here is developmental disability was marked yes, that there is one of those in the family, but we're also seeing here this section, a learning disability, developmental disability, or other impairment. Now, this is pretty much related to what I just spoke on with the mental health. Now, did this disability, developmental disability, have any kind of effect on their housing? It wouldn't be, oh, they were kicked out of their house because they were disabled. It is, what are the factors around the disabling condition that could have possibly led to them losing their housing? Again, it could have been maybe a single mom who's staying home, taking care of their child, so can't work, so doesn't have enough money to pay for rent, and that's how they lost their house. That technically could be that as well. Another section I'm seeing here is, does anyone in your family have any physical disabilities that would limit the type of housing you could access? Or would it make it hard to live independently because you need help? Now, I see people answer no on this question all the time, but I want to express that this could be something as simple as someone can't do stairs. Someone in your family can't do stairs. That technically is a physical disability that would limit the type of housing that they could access. So something as simple as that could be affecting their housing and actually should be reflected to change inside of this wellness section. I also just bring this up because anytime that a person comes to case conferencing, or anytime that we're looking at any client that you sent, one of the first things that I always do is go into this enrollment. I check and see what was marked here. I check inside the VI-SPDAT in its entirety, and I ensure that both of these two things match, because these things are directly connected to each other and will affect the prioritization on that number next list. So I think in this case, what I would do if I was seeing these two differences is I would connect with that family again and follow up, and I would do a new VI-SPDAT to ensure that everything was captured. Especially because sometimes when you're first doing the VI-SPDAT, that's your first couple of times working with the person after you built some rapport, you might get some different responses. You might get some more honest responses. All right. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about enrollment versus VI-SPDAT?
Rhiana, I wanted to add one thing.
Yes.
If we could go back just one slide to the enrollment.
Yes.
I wanted to also draw attention to the prior living situation on this particular example. So you can see it's asking here, where did you sleep last night? The type of residence that was selected in this example suggests that the person is housed, and they have been housed for a year or longer. So that tells us that they are not going to generate as chronically homeless on the number next list, because the system is, recognizing them as housed. So it's not calculating their, most recent episode of homelessness or their homeless history. So it's extremely important that when we're looking at the type of residence, we're selecting an option that reflects that they are experiencing homelessness. So if they're entering your shelter, you might want to wait until, they've stayed one night so you can answer that question, that they're in shelter, and then you can go through their history. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Julia. And it's also important for all of you, I would say, to be reviewing this section in the enrollment and ensuring that's correct. Because there has been multiple times where someone has brought a case to my attention and I'm seeing that the person is not reflecting as chronically homeless, but they actually are. And sometimes that's because maybe this section was done 7 months ago, 8 months ago, and something has changed, but they just left it from when they first enrolled them. So that is something that you want to pay great attention to, especially when we're considering if you have a client that you feel needs permanent supportive housing, the top prioritization is people that are experiencing chronic homelessness as well. So you want to make sure that that's correct. Yeah. Okay. We will continue on from this section as long as we don't have any more questions or concerns. The next thing we're going to just talk about is resources outside of CES. So the first thing we'll bring up is employment. So I'm sure everyone has heard of Hele to Work and First to Work. There are a couple of other resources that I have found. And if you want links to that, I guess I could have dropped them in the chat, sorry, but maybe we can send this resource document as well. But See Hawaii Work, this is a different type of housing, or sorry, employment support. So this basically takes on the concept of apprenticeship and expands into effective training for hire model with private sector management. So maybe, some of the jobs that persons are going to be able to get through other resources maybe would just be something that just get any kind of job, but maybe if it's someone that wants to get an apprenticeship, wants to go in another direction with their work life, that would be a great place to refer them to. Same with Nalimahana. This is also called For the Working Hand. It's essentially a program that provides personalized one-on-one employment counseling services, job readiness training, tuition assistance for a vocational school, and job placements to unemployed and underemployed individuals. So that could be something that you could definitely utilize as well. So if you would like that, we can send, if I can drop these in the chat.
I have the Nalimahana one. Can pop that in.
Okay. Okay, great. And then I think I have the See Hawaii Work. So let me just drop that in the chat as well really quick. Okay. All right. Next, I just really want to talk about case management. So outside case management should really be considered a resource as well. When it comes to CIS, many people can apply and a lot of people will be approved for CIS. And something that is great about that is that CIS and CCS, they stay with your client along their pathways, even after housing. I know so many times what happens with clients is they get so many different case managers, and by the time that they come to you, they're like, who are you? I'm just explaining the same thing to a new person. And, they struggle to trust because of the fact that they're feeling passed around. So just having that case manager that stays with them along the way can really go a long way for them. So I would have anybody who can apply for CIS and get that outside case management support if you don't have it. That's the same for CCS. Granted, that is for persons that are experiencing mental illness and they have to have that diagnosis. But I just also want to express, these are all the different case managers that I have listed here. CIS, CCS. There's outreach, there's on-site case management, there's care coordination. Sometimes your client could literally have 4 or 5 people also working on their case. And this is great. This is an amazing thing, especially considering the fact that so many have such a large caseload. Having other case managers that are working with your client is a beautiful thing. I would highly suggest, first and foremost, figuring out who those persons are. If you are having trouble figuring out who the outside case managers are, you can let us know and we can support you in finding out. But the thing is that we should all be connecting in that sense and being like, okay, I see that my client has a CCS case manager. Jump on the phone, call that CCS case manager, let them know, hey, I've been assigned this client. Can I just ask, what are you working on? How can I support you? See how they can support you as well. Really working collectively together as a team. I know sometimes it could feel like I've been with this person for a year. Now this other case manager is coming in and trying to do all this stuff, but it's like it really shouldn't be like that. It should be like, thank God there's another person that can help me with this. And we should really all be collaborative. So diving into HMIS, figuring out who those case managers are and working collectively together to see the best outcome for your client. That is such an important part of this. So if you need support on figuring out who your client's case managers are, let us know. We will help you with that as well. But you can also look in HMIS. And if you just go into into your client's page, you should be able to see who's part of the care team. But there's also a history tab. There's also a programs tab. And you can see where your client has really been in the past and to try and find some more support. Okay. With that, moving on to the mental and physical. So I'm just going to briefly touch on this because it's related to higher level of care. So if you have a client that you feel physically cannot live on their own anymore, then that's when you should consider applying for an 1147, and that will be done through the client's insurance. They're going to determine everything. It's not, up to you to fill out that documentation. You get that 1147 process started, and they will determine at that time if your client can qualify for a higher level of care. Realistically, it does not happen all the time. Sadly, we do see a lot of people just get short services, but if your client is really in need, then hopefully they would be approved to get that higher level of care housing. And that's when they would be assigned, another care coordinator person to assist with moving them into a higher level of care physically. The next one is 1157, higher level of care. So that could be for mental. So if you feel like you have a client that would not be able to live on their own due to their mental illness, and that would be even when you're considering can they live on their own, would be can they take their medication on their own? Are they able to remember to take it? Because if they're not, that technically could be considered somebody that would need a higher level of care because they need that support of someone to assist with their medications. So the way that you would get this process started is very much the same in that you need to talk to your client's insurance and let them know that you want to have an 1157 completed. At that time, they'll have to have that diagnosis, and they will or will not be approved for getting a CCS case manager. One of the cool things about having that CCS case management is that it does open you up to a different type of housing. AMHD has 816 and 24-hour group homes. Now, by 816, I mean that there's somebody on site for 8 hours a day, and then they're off site for 16 hours a day, or they have other sites where people are there 24 hours a day. You can apply for these outside of CES. That means you do not have to wait for a referral. It means that the CCS case manager has to submit a SharePoint referral to AMHD, and at that time, they will be considered for these higher level of cares. I'm going to pause right there and let Satomi ask her question.
Sorry, thank you. Just a clarification, both 1147 and 1157, it has to be filled out by a medical professional, am I correct? Like if I see that the client needs it, the first step would be to get her talk to the primary doctor or the specialist that the client is seeing, am I correct?
Yeah, I think you can also just call their insurance and let them know, hey, I would like to start the 1147 process for this client.
Okay. I'm having a difficulty in having the client getting connected to somebody who is either willing to fill out the form or who is familiar to the form. So yeah, okay, thank you. And another question is that CCS can be accepted only through 1157, am I correct?
Yes. So to be able to get a CCS, it has to have the 1157 completed. And then I just want to express, Satomi, if you want to shoot us an email and let us know the client that you're struggling with, let us know the type of insurance, and we can see, maybe we can loop somebody in that we can help support and find out what's going on with that 1147.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anna, you have a question? 2 questions.
Thank you. I have a question. So yes, the 1147 and 1157, can those each be done for a client who is almost 25 or 25 and has an adult VI-SPDAT already completed, or is this only for youth?
The 1147 and 1157, wow, it's for, I believe, 18 plus.
Yes.
So I think maybe it looked different under 70, under 18, but yes, it can be for any age above that. And it's not in direct relation to CES either, or the VI-SPDAT. This is completely outside of that. So if you want to apply for these, it's just not related to VI-SPDAT. It's separate outside of it.
So it's just stands alone, mutually exclusive, but an adult or a person entering adulthood of that age, then we could request these for one of these for.
Yes.
Perfecto. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the questions. I love it. Okay. Any other questions? Anything in the chat? Okay. So we'll move on to the next section. Relocation. So relocating a person to another island or another state, that is something that is possible and should be considered. So if you have a client that, expresses, hey, I have family on another island, hey, I have family on in another state, you could potentially relocate them. Actually, the main persons that does support with that is IHS. And I guess maybe someone wants to drop the link in the chat. But yes, if that's something that you want to consider, I think generally from what I know, they do pay 50% of the flight, and then the client or however is expected to pay the rest of it. But they also must prove that they have somewhere to go, have an address, not just trying to fly on IHS dime, So that is relocation. The next section is Department of Disabilities. So now there are resources that are available. They provide services to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who meet the division's eligibility criteria. Now, I will express sometimes it's hard to get into contact with the Department of Disabilities. So I know just like we have big caseloads and all that, I'm certain that they are experiencing the same thing. So I would just express to be diligent. Make a note to yourself, because this is an outside type of funding that's available for just this specific criteria. So if you have somebody that meets that, I would just express, keep being diligent, keep reaching out to them and get that support that's needed. I'm sorry that I can't say much more to it, but I would just really express, making sure that you're being diligent and writing yourself notes and following up. And then the last thing in this is be a detective. When I was out in the field, I would always say that my job is like being a really weird detective, because you're trying to find resources sometimes in the wildest ways. First and foremost, I would say be a detective in HMIS, be a detective in Clarity. So like I mentioned before, if you go inside Clarity, you will see that they have not only a history, they have programs, and there's what's called the number next list assessments. So you can go into a client's account, and between reviewing that, you can see where they've been the last years. You can see what programs they've been. Sometimes you can even potentially see where they are inside those number next list assessments. You can read, any case manager that has worked with them has generally put some kind of notes inside there. So you can find out all sorts of details. So first, start by being a detective in HMIS, find out everything you can, find out who those other case managers are, reach out to them. That would be my first step. But then also, I know that there's one participant that we were looking to support that has autism, but that is also older. And we're like, he couldn't really do PSH. There's a lot of different varying things that we looked into. So we're just like typing into Google, person experiencing homelessness, autism, where could they live? And there was actually some place that we found on the North Shore that actually accepts persons like him to come live there and to come work, etc. So I'm just saying is Google is your friend. Type in, and just do research. That's honestly how I found many of the resources that we have, was just deep diving into the computer and seeing what I can find. Any questions on these resources outside of CES? I will also briefly mention, it's not listed here, but Handyvan, that's for persons with disabilities who are unable to use the city buses, and the Handyvan operates during the same days and hours as the bus, and it's available to areas located within 3/4 of a mile of the bus routes. So actually, when I was working at Sumner, there was a gentleman that had seizures, and I submitted that documentation, and he was able to obtain handy van. So especially if you've got a person and you're considering, hey, maybe they need an 1147, maybe they need some more support, I would absolutely apply for handy van. There's also low income transit. And I think most people will qualify for that. And there's also Lyft for SSI. So maybe I can drop these in the chat, but definitely consider transportation. Go ahead, Alex.
I also know that a lot of them with their medical insurance, there is some free transport through medical as well. That'll provide like a taxi service for them.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great point. And you know what I would say as well is some persons are just kind of stuck in the shelter while we're waiting for resources to become available. So do everything you can to stabilize them. Do everything to try connect them to physical, mental health. Try and connect them to any type of transportation or maybe even getting a part-time job. Do everything that you can so that when it does come time to move, that we're setting them up for success, that they're, have some other things that they're up to. Okay. The next is, how can Partners in Care further support your team? Now, I'm sure many of you get lots of emails from us because there's lots of meetings all the time. And you know what? It's a beautiful thing because it's just all about us being available to help support. One of the first things that we have is case conferencing meetings. Now, these meetings are basically, you can take any person that you're struggling with, say you're not sure what to do with them next, say you don't know where they are on the number next list, say that they don't have any documentation, you don't know what to do. You would add this person to the case conferencing agenda, and essentially somebody on our team will do a deep dive on that client and we'll come to you with whatever we can figure out, but we will work as a team together to try and support you with that client for as long as it takes. So that's our case conferencing meetings. Next, we have the number next list meetings. Now, these essentially what they look like is somebody from our team is going through that number next list for whatever subpopulation. So say it's individuals, we have that number next list. We're going through, we're seeing where they are on the list. We're seeing if there's any documents missing. We're seeing if there's any barriers that we need to add. What is the recommended housing resource? So those are our number next list meetings. We also have Ohana conferences. Now, sometimes what will happen, something that we experience often, is sometimes we'll have one provider expressing a concern or something about a client, and then maybe we'll have another provider expressing a concern in a different way. What we'll do is we'll have one whole entire meeting with everybody that's on that care team, and we'll just give a space for everybody to express what's going on from their angle and really try and come up with a solution together. So those are Ohana conference. You can always request one, and we're happy to support. We also have specific provider or individual caseload reviews. So you as a team, just like say you have a couple of case managers on your team and maybe you want to go over your caseload with us, you can schedule that time. We can do it via Teams or we can do it in person, and we can literally sit there, go over your caseload with you, look and, check the same kinds of things that we do in the number next list, ensuring that, they have the documentation or just coming up with resources and coming up with ways to help support you. So if you want to have a specific just caseload review, just your team or just you by yourself, that's absolutely fine. We're here for it. Just shoot us an email and we can help you with that. Outside of that, we have landlord engagement program. Now, this is an amazing program. I'm so excited. I don't know if Alan is on here if you want to randomly jump in and say something, but sorry to just call you out on the spot.
He was on, but I think he had to hop off.
Okay, no worries. So the landlord engagement program, now this is our team that's really supporting persons that are struggling to find housing or struggling to find an apartment. Say that they already have a PSH voucher, but you haven't been able to find a unit for them. This is a team that can help you do that. So usually it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, it's persons that already have a subsidy in place that comes to our team, or can they also not have a subsidy?
Yeah, it kind of depends. There is a way to refer households that don't have a subsidy to the landlord engagement program. But when speaking about the CES side of it, typically we would, have the client already referred to the housing program. And after we've, identified that there are a number of barriers that are getting in the way of the housing program, locating a unit for that person, then our team may suggest a referral to the LEP team. I will drop the link for LEP in the chat, and you can read the page on it and learn a little bit more about the community referral side.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Al.
Did we also drop can we also add the document that has all of our meetings on there as well?
Yes, that's in there.
Okay, great. So just so
Yep.
everyone knows, inside we did put a document in there. It has all of our meetings listed for you to attend. And if you're not invited, just shoot us an email and we will invite you. The last way that we can support is post-referral touch bases. So what does this look like? It means, say your client has been referred to PSH. As soon as that happens, we add you to a post-referral touch base. And that looks like a weekly meeting where we're checking in on the entire care team for your client, as well as connecting with the provider who's giving the subsidy. This is just to ensure that everything is moving along and that deadlines for documentations, et cetera, are being met, and just making sure that, nothing slips through the cracks and the client is able to move into the next location swiftly and efficiently. So if you're receiving an email that says post referral, it's because it's for your client that's already been matched, and we want to work with you and make sure that they get housed appropriately and quickly. So these are all the ways that we can support your team. I just want to express again, I know that this field has so many wild things that happen in it all the time, and it's ever changing. And you know what? There's always new staff, people coming in and out, or people's roles changing. And sometimes it can be a little confusing. And if you have any questions or you need support or you need any more training, we are happy to help you with it. There's a whole team, our whole agency is actually very happy to help. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. No questions are stupid. We all know that, we have the same thing in mind. We just want to help our community. That's why we're all in this field, right? So just letting you know that we're here for you. If you want, reach out to us. And this is the last slide, just saying thank you. This is my number on here. I know I'm blasting it out to a lot of people, but that's okay, because I don't mind receiving phone calls and texts if you need support. If you need training or support from CES, here is our email address. You can shoot us an email at any time. And like I said, we're always here to help. We'll always very swiftly respond. And with that is the end of the training. So I'll open it up for any questions that anyone has. All right. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Rhiana. If you guys have any questions for anything, like she said, you can reach out to her. You can also email pickhousing@coordinatedentrysystem.org. And you guys can also go ahead and view our website. It has information there. If you check out the Our Team page, you can directly reach out to any member of the CES team. And also the CES page, where you can go in and find links to everything if you were unable to open something from the chat. And of course, the CES team will always be able to provide those things to you as well. So thank you guys. We'll let you guys out 7 minutes early if there's no questions.
Woo!
All right. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
very
much,
much.
Rhiana.
Thanks, I'll take it.
Thank you.